Okay, so a little more than a year ago, I picked up this book and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And then I picked up the rest of the books, and then I saw that there were more books. So I picked up these books and I enjoyed them. And then I saw there were these books and I read all of them. So now I have been wrapped up in this entire, I don't even know what it is called, but I've been wrapped up in the Throne of Glass saga for, like, I don't know, pretty much the entire year, because sometimes I read really slow and then sometimes I read really fast. So I really want to talk about these books. There's so many of them. There's so many elements to this series, and I absolutely love it. And there's plenty of material to talk about until Crescent City 3, which are these books, 1 and 2. And the third one comes out in January 2024, so at the end of this month. I'm so excited for it. And there may be some things that are mentioned in other series that may support some things that are in this series, and I really want to get into it. We're going to go through the Throne of Glass series first, and we're going to start with Throne of Glass. Now, a warning before we get into these books: Throne of Glass starts as a young adult, which means there are maybe some violence, romance, stuff like that, and it kind of gets to a PG-13 rating, but about 2/3 of the way through the books, we get into a new adult rating, which is very much more rated R. But as for A Court of Thorns and Roses and Crescent City, those are both new adult, and we'll get into that little more once we get into those books. But for now, we're going to start with Throne of Glass. And yes, this means that I'm going to spoil every single little book at a time. So Throne of Glass, and then once we get the second, it'll be second and first, and so on and so forth. If you want to read the book, pause this video, go read the book, but by all means come back to this video because it's super important, and this video is just, this is more important. Well, maybe. To me it is. Anyways, but if you just don't mind being spoiled, go ahead and watch this video. Throw in a like if you want. I mean, I'm not the boss of you, but I will be a little bit passive aggressive. So what we're going to get into with these books, we are going to go through plot and storyline, which are just one. I'm just going to say plot and storyline just for the heck of it. And then characters, settings, mythos / lore. Interesting and foreshadowing stuff I'll kind of dabble into what I thought was very foreshadowing, especially in Throne of Glass. Themes, and because this is my video, things that I liked. It could be anything from descriptors to ideas that someone says, or maybe just a turn of events. When I was researching this book and I was writing the script, I was in the middle of reading Assassin's Blade, so I read Crown of Midnight, then I read Heir of Fire, and then I read Assassin's Blade, and then went on to Queen of Shadow. So I read that order, and then when I finished up this script and I made some adjustments, I was reading Queen of Shadow. So I did not want to research some of this stuff. Like, I tried to put limits on what I did research because I did not want to be spoiled for the rest of the series. So first, let's go ahead and jump into it, and we'll start in with the character traits / descriptions. So with characters, we start with our main character from this book, Celaena Sardothian. For the longest time, I kept saying Kalena, because there's a character named Kale, and I was like, oh, cool, okay, cool. The C is a hard C, so I'll just pronounce it with a K, and no, it's not. It is Selena, like a Selena. I had to look that up and go on YouTube and be like, how to pronounce, which is a very humbling experience. Selena is Adarlan's most notorious assassin. Adarlan is the kingdom that we're gonna be in this book, okay? She's 18 years old, and she's an accomplished assassin. She's very proud of herself. She is very vain. She knows she's very beautiful, which is such a great flaw that we see right away. I think it really becomes this kind of downfall with a lot of her decisions in a lot of the progress throughout the entire story in the other books as well, where we just see, oh, that's how it affects her. She can't be humbling enough to do something that was not her idea or whatever it may be. So I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed that we saw that right up front. We also learned that she's very resilient, which I also like. When we meet Selena, we first meet her in the salt mines of Endovir, which is a prison camp. And we learn that people, don't last, but, a month, maybe 2. Selena lasts for a year, which is insane for an 18-year-old girl. Absolutely insane. And she's very strong, which we learn from the rest of the book. But she also has a temper as well. And we learn that as well. And I think that goes hand in hand with her pride, because she can't look past her own accomplishments. I think. Like, she thinks she knows the best out of any situation, which I think she does in a lot of ways. But anyways, I digress. We'll get on to that later. And then we meet another main character, Dorian Haviliard. He is the crown prince of Adarlan, and he's quite a catch. He is very handsome, he's a ladies' man, and he's well trained, whether that be in manners or in combat. He's just well trained. He loves to read, and which is something that, like, he and Selena really, like, have in common, and kind of is a thread line through this book and a few other books as well. And then we have Cale Westfall. He is the captain of the guard. He was born to be a lord, like he was an heir to his dad's lordship, but he just bowed out and was like, no, my brother can have it. I'm going to be captain of the guard for the king. That's what he did, and he is literally BFFs with Dorian. He thinks of him as, like, his own brother. They grew up together. Then we meet Nehemia Edgar. I think that's how you pronounce the last name. I could not find the pronunciation, and I did not want to search for it because I did not want to be spoiled. She is the princess of Elwë. Elwë is a kingdom that is south of Adarlan, and also is being, how do I put this, is being colonialized by Adarlan. And Nehemia is there to be like a spokesperson for her kingdom. She is willing to try and do some negotiations with the king and all that stuff. She wants to be a willing participant. But she becomes fast friends with Selena. We see that Nehemia is very beautiful, she's very intelligent, and she's a great friend. But she's also really resilient like Selena. She is determined. And we love that for her. And then we have the King of Adarlan. So for the king, the only thing I could think of to describe him is what we see through Selena's point of view. She immediately knows that he's a murderer. This guy has been taking over kingdoms, has been killing people, literally extinguishing any magical element within the kingdom, within the entire continent, if he could. At least the east side. The east side. I know that he's ruthless and that he kills innocent people. So we get the continent. The continent, from what I thought, was called Erelia. Now I think Erelia is actually the world, or rather the entire compromised realm of this entire thing. But anyways, this continent is comprised of several kingdoms. It is comprised of Theorizing, Adarlan, Fenharrow, Elwë, the Western Waste, and the Deserted Land. And that is Erelia, and that's the setting of our story. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the story. Selena's story starts at the salt mines of Endovier. She has been there for a year. She's working really hard. It is literally, slowly, and surely killing her. She's also tried to escape once, which we learn about in the first few chapters, and she nearly made it to the wall of the prison camp, but instead of being killed, she was reprimanded. That's such an interesting choice, because why not kill her, kind of thing? Like, not to play devil's advocate or anything, but why reprimand her? You know? And we also learn that she has anger issues. We also learn that Selena has, like, she just went wild at the prison camp. She killed a bunch of guards because they were treating some slaves not so very kind. I mean, really day to day, but there was an incident, and she killed several guards. But in the first few chapters, she is being taken to the Prince of Adarlan, which is Crown Prince Dorian Haviliard. He makes a deal with her to compete in a tournament where she will act as his champion. She will be part of the tournament to become the king's champion, so that if there's anything that the king needs to be done, like, I want you to secretly kill my enemies across the sea so I can have power, she'll do that kind of thing. You know, she'll take out people in a very hush-hush manner. And through negotiations, she accepts the offer that if she becomes the king's champion, she'll work for him for 3 years and then become free. Like, she'll officially have her freedom back. Her transition from being a slave into being the princess champion is also taken, like, it's described, and we learn that she, like, literally cannot keep food down. She can't even sleep comfortably in, like, a bed, and that really just affects her physically and mentally. I mean, wouldn't it to you? I don't know, man. So they begin their travel from currently the salt mines of Endovier to Rifthold, which is the capital where the palace is for the king and his family. On their way, they stop in Brandon's Forest, which is a good chapter or whatever. We really get some important details in here. First of all, who's Brandon? He is the first king of Theorizing, which is the kingdom above Adarlan. We learn that the king of Adarlan currently, he ransacked Harrison and just killed the royal family because they were very much like, they loved magic. Like they were really, they had magic in their bloodline. They were pro all the fae and fae-like creatures and all that stuff. And Brannon actually was a fae. And Brannon lived thousands of years ago. The king of Adarlan currently outlawed magic. And on top of that, there were no magical creatures. They all disappeared about 10 years ago, okay? But during their stay in the forest, we get a glimpse of how Adarlan views magic. A lot of the soldiers are prejudiced and, quite frankly, racist and xenophobic towards the fae. They don't like any of that, okay? We also get a moment where Selena wakes up to find little footprints by her and also little flowers. Basically, the fae-like creatures, not the fae, the human cousins of the fairies and the fairy creatures, those little creatures, they leave gifts by Selena, and she's like, oh, okay, you gotta, they didn't leave me gifts, you know, like that. She's trying to hide that they were there. So once they get to Rifthold, Selena is taken to her quarters, but it's less of a quarter, like a bed and bath or whatever. It's more of an apartment. This girl has like, she has like a sitting area, dining room area, like just this entire like few couple rooms, her bedroom and a bathroom. I mean, it's just like, how much is she paying? Nothing? Because I would love that. Like, she's described to have like a pool table in there, a piano, a nice little fireplace, a nice balcony. Where is that for me? I want that. I'd love a little balcony. Shoot, I'll be a champion. I won't last very long, but I'll be a champion. After Selena settles into the room, our perspective changes from hers to Dorian's, and we see how much, like, Dorian is speaking to his father, and we see how much Dorian is trying to, like, maybe unconsciously prove himself to his father. And it's kind of sad, not to laugh or anything, but it's sad that Dorian has to do that. A 19-year-old kid who's just doing his best, you know? Selena then attends the first gathering for the tournament, and she learns that the competition will go on for 13 weeks. She also has to go by a code name. Nobody can know she's Selena Sardothian. She has to go by the name Lillian Gordana. Okay, because if people find out that she is Selena Sardothian, they'll be like, ooh, you know what? I'm getting out of here. Now, while Dorian has Selena representing him, okay, we have that. Duke Parrington, who is like the king's right-hand man, and we kind of meet him in the first 2 chapters. He's kind of mean to Selena in a lot of ways. Actually, in every way. He has a man named Kane representing him. We kind of get the idea that Parrington is a little sus. Actually, not a little. He's very sus. He's just like one of those guys where you're like, I gotta cover my drink while I'm at a party with him because something may happen. But he's very loyal to the king, so we need to keep an eye on him, and we will. Basically, what we need to know is that all these champions are either soldiers or they're delinquents. There's like, not to brag or anything, I don't know why this is a brag, there's a guy named the Eye Eater amongst these champions. I don't want to know. So, Princess Nehemia of Elway, the kingdom to the south of Adarlan, is a guest to the palace. She's being escorted by a lady named Lady Caltaine. She's also the fiancée of Duke Parrington. Selena meets Nehemia while she and Kale are walking around the palace, kind of getting a game plan together for the championship, because actually Kale is training Selena, so there's a friendship that is bubbling between them, possibly. But they're walking around the palace, and they run into Lady Caltaine and Princess Nehemia, and when Selena starts speaking to Nehemia in Elway, in their language, literally everyone is shocked. No one saw it coming. So, before the first task is even started, a champion who is found murdered, and yes, it's the guy who I told you before, Bill Chastain, the Eye Eater, he's found murdered. And you know what? I don't want to pass judgments on people. I don't. But this is a fictional character, and I will pass a judgment. Maybe he should have died, okay? Maybe that was a good call. Eye Eater. Ooh. Anyway, because of this murder, Kale is investigating. And that will become more important to the story, because we see he's captain of the guard, and he needs to know what's going down. Meet me in the club. It's going down. Anyway, the first task comes and goes, and Selena does not win, okay? But she doesn't lose, so she's not kicked out of the competition, but she's like in 9th place or something like that. Like, she is just, you know, her pride is taking a dip. She's like, I could have won, I could have done better, and we love that for her. She's a play-to-win type of character. She is so prideful of herself, and good for her. She's accomplished a lot in her short life. During one of the practices, though, a champion tries to flee. is shot down dead by an arrow. Yeah, this guy that tries to flee, his name is Sven, or was Sven, R.I.P. Sven. So the second task is over. It's done. The task was to scale a wall to reach the flag at the top, and Selena passed, but not without saving an ally. So her ally is Nox within the tournament, and he's kind of a nice guy to her, also a little fearful of her, but she saves his life, because she's like, hey, I made an ally, and I'm going to keep that ally. And you know, good for her. She makes friends along the way in unlikely places, sure, but she makes them along the way, and we love that about her. And that actually that actually is another through line throughout this series. She makes friends in unlikely circumstances. But another champion named Ned, he fell to his death during the task, so nobody really got ousted. It was just Ned who died. So basically both her and Nox are saved. There also was a competitor that did not show up to the second task, and it found out that he was murdered. Brutally murdered. I was just thinking, I think YouTube might demonetize this because of how much I'm talking about, but this is all fake. This is all fake YouTube. This is just a book. I'm not actually talking about something. So it's the fall months. It's the fall months, guys. We kind of get that with the description of being in Brandon's forest earlier, like in the book. But it is the fall months. It's getting cold. It's getting chilly. We're loving it. Of course, we have the holiday Samhain, which is, I think, how you pronounce it. Samhain. Anyway, it's spelled like this on the screen. It's kind of like Halloween, okay? And there's a party, but Selena's not invited. Now I did do some research on Samhain, which is actually the way that they write it in this book. I think it's a little different from how they write it, like how it's written in Gaelic, but it's kind of like Halloween. It literally means November in Gaelic and Gaelic. Basically, it starts sundown on the 31st of October and ends sunup in November, because literally the days in Gaelic and Gaelic, which yes are two different things. I've done my research, but they believe that the day ended when the sun went down, so it would technically be November for them. But basically, it's Halloween for Aderlin, and Selena is not invited. And while Selena and Nehemia, during the day, are walking the grounds, Selena sees Cain, Duke Parrington's tribute, and he's looking at something on the ground near the clock tower, or near the tower, whatever it is. And after he leaves, Selena sees what he's looking at on the ground, and she's like, "What's that?" And Nehemia tells her, "Oh, those are word marks. They're part of an ancient religion. No worries, but just ignore it. Just ignore those weird marks on the ground." And before the two girls part, they agree to teach each other their language. Like Nehemia, she always speaks with a broken accent, and so she's like, "I want to know more English." And Selena's like, "Well, can you teach me how to speak not like a peasant in Elway?" Because we learn how she spoke Elway is through the other prisoners in the salt mines. Those were a lot of Elway prisoners up there, and she learned their language through talking to them and just through hearing. So that's very kind of them to be able to want to teach each other their language. Yeah, they're becoming friends. We love to see it. While being in her room during Samhain, Selena finds a secret passage. Okay, she's smart, and if there's one thing she's gonna do is she's gonna do it. She's gonna find things. So she did. She found a tunnel. And this takes her to an entrance where she sees Kale and Dorian enjoying the party. It's taking her to where she can see, like, outside where the party's at. And she's like, okay, why are there other tributes here? Like, she's literally the only tribute that wasn't there or wasn't invited. Pretty much Dorian and Kale want her to be kept secret and away from other people because Kale thinks she might kill other people because she is an assassin. You know, maybe that's not the best thing, Kale, okay? Maybe mind your own business. And she's upset about it, and for good reason, because she sees everyone having fun. She sees the other champions. But she goes back in and she spends the night to herself. But during the night, Kale kind of comes in and checks on her. It's like, "Hey, you're still here? Okay, cool. You're still here." We see in these moments where it looks like Kale is starting to fall for Selena. It's kind of precious little moments because he literally can't let himself emotionally divulge himself through any actions or whatever it is, but he'll just show it in the smallest things. And I think that's very beautiful. And I love that about Kale. I, not like other people that I've seen, actually enjoy the character of Kale. There are some things that he does where I'm like, okay, you need to just shut up for a second. Then there are things where I'm like, you know what? You've charmed me. But he leaves, okay? So back to the story. He leaves. And she thinks it's all a dream, okay? But she ends up back in the passageway, and she finds the catacombs for the first king and queen of Adarlan. The king, King Gavin Haviliard, and Queen Elena Galanthinius Haviliard. Oh, nobody knows. Okay, so Elena is Brandon's daughter, so she is half Fae. Galanthinius is the royal family name for Theorizing. Okay, so the spirit of Elena comes to Celaena and tells her that there is an evil spirit there's an evil, like deep evil in the palace, and she must get rid of it. Celaena's like, okay, but you're dead, like, kind of thing. So the next morning they find another champion dead and literally found half eaten, and so the next test is postponed. That was actually a really funny conversation between Kale and Celaena, because Kale's like, another champion was found dead. Where were you last night? And she goes, I was in my room. I didn't kill anybody. And he goes, well, I know you didn't, because this guy's half eaten. If you did that, that'd be disgusting. And he's like, brutally, like, it's almost like an animal did it. Celaena actually wins the next task. She really wants to hit Cain where it hurts. She kind of does. And she gets some words in against Cain. She wants to prove her dominance. She's like, I'm the alpha here. And Cain kind of reveals that he knows who she is, or insinuates that he does. And so Celaena tells Kale about that, and Kale's like, all right, we lost our surprise element. It's okay, we'll pivot. We'll just pivot to whatever. And they're going to prepare to beat Cain, because that's their competition. That's basically Celaena's biggest competition, is Cain. Then we find out that another body was found. Varen Islich. So they realized that the killer must have been known to him, because when they found his body, he kind of looked like he wasn't trying to run away. It looked like he was, oh gosh, I don't know how to describe it, but they talk about it in like different true crime stuff where they're like, hey, if they knew the person, they would have been like front, like talking or whatever, and the attack would have come from the front, but the guy didn't run away, so it wasn't like in the back. It was like he was found in a way that insinuated he would have known his killer. Celaena and Dorian spend more and more time with each other. There are growing feelings for sure between the two, and to be expected, because Dorian is quite a catch, and he's quite dreamy. I mean, he's a ladies' man, and he's the crown prince, and he reads, what can I say? I mean, he's got it. There's some beautiful moments between the two. We also learn that Celaena, she can play the piano, like, really well. So, and then we see there's a moment, the perspective goes to Kale, okay? We see a moment where Kale sees Duke Parrington's eyes go black, and we see a black ring on his finger. Kale's suspicious. Kale is very suspicious. He's like, what is going on? You don't see someone's eyes go completely black and go, well, it might be that time of day, He's keeping his eye on Duke Parrington. Okay, so the next test is a poisons test. Celaena passes the test with Pellar's help. Pellar is another ally that she makes. Pellar has been quite a good ally with Celaena. Not as much as Nox, but they're on good terms, okay? And Pellar, we know that he has training with poisons, and so Celaena knows, like, oh, this one goes there, whatever. Then afterwards, Celaena runs into Cain and realizes how horrific he looks. Like, he's bigger. His body is bigger. He has black eyes, like someone else we've noticed, and a black ring, like someone else we've noticed. And this is suspicious to her, and it should be. She's very smart, and we love her. And she makes a judgment call, and she warns Pellar and Nox to stay in their rooms, like, just lock themselves in the rooms. Do not do anything. And so they do. Of course, we get a nice little chapter of Kaltain, and she is suspicious of Lillian. She's like, who is this Lillian? Why is she, like, all in Dorian's atmosphere? She has a crush. Kaltain has a crush on Dorian, actually wants to marry him, and is trying to pivot from Parrington to Dorian, and it's not happening. Parrington is just Parrington. I can't explain it. I can't describe it, but you get the vibe. He's not one to be like, okay, she wants to leave me. All right. Parrington is supporting the suspicion, and is like, yeah, she is super suspicious. Oh my gosh. He's really just trying to support Kaltain, I guess. So we move on to Kale checking in on Celaena, which at this time she's having a horrible period. Not just like a period of time, but a horrible menstrual cycle. This is her first one in a while since near starvation. We actually get that this is part of that transition from her body, like, getting better from the salt mines. She is literally having her first period since forever, okay? Because starvation and harsh elements can do that to a woman's body. While she's like literally in pain, he's like, thank you so much for being friends with Nehemia. Like, I think that is so kind of you. But Selena's like, yeah, I'm actually really sick and I'm like on my period. And Kale's like, oh, okay. He just leaves in a hurry. But Dorian arrives and he's actually like, not that Kale wasn't, but he's actually there for like caring for Selena, and he's falling in love with her. Dorian is. Actually, kind of Kale is too, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Another test happens, by the way. Peller lost, so he went home, and he's unscathed. He doesn't get murdered, he doesn't get hurt or anything, he just loses. But 3 other competitors, unnamed, were brutally killed, found around the castle. So 3 other unnamed victims, other competitors. They were found just like the other victims, brutally murdered. So if you haven't been counting, I know I have, because I'm writing the script, that's 7 mysterious murders. I digress. Dorian is talking with Selena one day, sees an amulet around her neck, and it's the same amulet that Elena, the ghost of Elena, gives her. There was a whole conversation that they had, you know, and she was like, here, take this amulet, it'll protect you from evil. And she's like, okay, cool. He's like, hey, that kind of looks like Elena's amulet. Like my great times a billion grandmother, the first queen of Aderlin, kind of looks like her amulet. Of course he knows history. He's a dreamy prince who reads, so we love that about him. Selena then, like later on, she sees word marks under her bed. Like one night she wakes up and she sees word marks and she is freaked out. She's like, this is what Cain was looking at. These are gonna haunt me. So she literally is just like trying to wipe them out and stuff. She cannot sleep that night, so she goes to the library and she sees Nehemia in the library reading something far more advanced for her, and she's speaking without an accent. Selena is shocked and she feels betrayed. She's like, she's hiding something. Anyways, so Yulemas has arrived, and of course we know Yule is usually celebrated on the day of the year with the least amount of sunlight, so it is the winter solstice, but they call it Yulemas, and it's so much fun. There's a lot of candy, there's a lot of presents, all that stuff, and it's the shortest day of the year and happens to be one of Selena's favorite holidays. She's so excited, and she literally destroys the candy that Dorian gave her, and like really quickly, that to the point when he comes by in the morning, he's like, okay, thought you were gonna save some so we could have some together, but it doesn't happen. But he actually has another present for her, and it's a puppy. Earlier on, Dorian had like one of his dogs breeded, and it was with a dog that isn't like a high class dog with, you know, reputable DNA. I guess, I don't know. And he's like, these are all like runts or whatever. Basically, someone's like, please don't give them away. They need homes. So Dorian actually gives her the runt of the litter, and she loves it. She loves a dog, and we love that for her, and we love that people love dogs in this story. That's so sweet. So we get that Selena is suspicious of Nehemia, and we get this kind of thought process that she's like, maybe Nehemia is behind everything. She knows a lot about word marks, and like, she's not who she says she is. Kind of like she knows more and she knows the language more, and she's just super suspicious. And so we get that. We also get a moment where she goes to a religious service, and she gets gifted the arrow of Diana, who is the goddess of hunt. But Selena gets her Cinderella moment later on and goes to the Yulemas ball, which she was specifically not invited. Like, not that the guards knew, but Dorian or Kale was like, don't go. And she's like, no, I'm gonna go. And she gets dressed very beautifully, and she looks like a princess. If you don't know, this story is kind of a loose retelling of Cinderella. Very loose retelling of Cinderella, but nonetheless it is. Selena wants Dorian. Okay, she is fully for him. She is like, I want this man. I have to have him. They dance together, and Kale is like mad jealous. Like, he has it for Selena. He wants her. This is wild. I don't like a love triangle. I never do. And I was very disappointed in this, so I was not really happy, and I was like, Dorian's really nice, but also I really like Kale, and I was like, oh. Dorian and Selena finally kiss, and Kale is heartbroken. Rightly so, Kale. You can't emotionally, like, express yourself, so boy, you need to get it under control. So anyway, back to Parrington and Caltaine. They hatch a plan to ensure that Lillian's death is accidental. Selena goes down in the passageways and sees that Cain was behind the deaths all along. Now, mind you, he's been getting bigger and bigger, like the mountain in Game of Thrones. Like, he's huge. And so he's been up to some weird magic. He hasn't specifically been killing people. A thing called the Ritterak has. He has been like summoning this weird, scary monster thing to eat people and basically take the strength and power from other people that the Ridderak has killed and take it for himself. So that's what Cain has been doing. Now, I tried to look up if there was like an equivalent to a Ridderak in like mythology and lore in our worlds, but I couldn't find anything. The closest I think is like a fugly hound that's been turned inside out and has a bloodlust, something vampiric basically. So like Morbius. Selena is left by Cain with the Ridderak, and Selena finally kills the Ridderak with Damaris, which is Gavin's sword from the tomb. We do get like a glimpse of it. It's like in a very Arthurian style, where it's like in a stone type thing, but not without Selena getting bitten by the monster, and the monster has like really bad venom, and the venom is starting to kill her. Now mind you, if magic was allowed, Selena would have been healed in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail, but no, the King of Ardalan had to outlaw magic and had to like literally get rid of it. Cut me a break, King. We're trying to like have a story here where Selena is trying to like live, and you want to get rid of magic? Anyway, Nehemia finds Selena in her room, dying from poison, and she heals Selena by magic. Thanks, girl. Love you. Love you, Nehemia. Love you, girl. Through a conversation, Nehemia reveals to Selena that she was the one who made the word marks underneath Selena's bed to protect her. Because Nehemia knows word marks. She knows like a vast majority of word marks. She knows a lot, and she's about to know a lot more because Selena tells her that her name isn't Lillian. It's Selena Sardothian, the assassin. And Nehemia then gives Selena a new name. It's like, well, you're my BFF, so I'm going to give you your own nickname that I'm going to call you. It's Alentia, which means spirit that could not be broken in Elway. It means spirit that could not be broken, but it means that in Elway. Want to preface that. Then Selena tells Nehemia her story, which we conveniently missed out on. Later on, we get that Nox realizes that Selena has a lot at stake and knows more than she lets on, and he leaves the competition, escaping the castle without a word. He's like, all right, I'm out of here. Good luck, girl. Love you. The last trial begins. These are the duels, and Selena, Grave, Renault, and Cain are the final 4. This is prime time, baby. We're getting it up on ABC. Everyone's gonna be viewing it around the kingdom. Going down. Meet me in the club. It's going down. Renault and Cain duel, and Cain wins. There's no like deaths. Like, it's not to the death. It's just to the I forfeit kind of thing, you know? And Cain wins. Grave and Selena duel, and Selena wins, but not without Selena giving him a like, loser, I was Selena all along type thing, you know. Okay, so before the final duel between Selena and Cain, Kaltain poisons the wine for Selena earlier, but suggests that both champions drink the wine in honor of the king and such, you know. It's like, oh guys, maybe you should drink a toast to the king, and whoever wins is honoring the king. I don't know, something strange like that. So Selena drinks her wine, and it's been poisoned. Selena then begins to see hallucinations. She is drugged up, man. She sees hallucinations during her duel with Cain, and on top of that, she sees an army of dead behind Cain. Cain then becomes something super dark, like Valg dark, which is something like a demon in the story. And before I wanted to look up anything on Valg, I did not look up anything on Valg, because I was like, this has to be important, you know what I mean? So I really didn't, but in the next one, we'll look up more. Elena then reveals herself in these hallucinations. She's like, okay, I'm here, I'm gonna help you out. She takes the poison from Selena's body and helping her not to see the horrors of the shadow world. Basically, there's a shadow world, absolutely insane, but Selena no longer sees them because Elena's a real one, you know? Selena won her duel against Cain, but the king wasn't too happy about that. The king gives Cain a look to kill her, and Kale saw the whole interaction and defends his secret love and kills Cain. Now, we specifically get that this is the first man he's ever killed. First man. He's a very skilled warrior, and he knows how to do combat and all that stuff, but he's never outright killed someone. He's only like 22 years old, okay? This really affects him. This causes Kaltain to be like, hey, Parrington, I thought the poison would do something to her. And Parrington's like, you poisoned her? Really loud. And so Parrington frames Kaltain for the poison, so she gets shipped off into the cells below the castle and is like, okay, you're a prisoner now. Then after the whole spiel, Dorian talks to his father alone and wants to make sure Kale wasn't going to get in trouble for this, and he's like, Kale was just doing what he needed to do. Cain was going to kill her. And the king's like, maybe I won't kill my captain of the guard. Before he leaves though, Dorian tells his father, he's like, hey, please don't let Parrington like use Nehemia as a pawn. Like, there's some things going on, and Parrington's a little weird towards Nehemia. Can we not just like have him take a few steps back. His dad's like, okay, yeah, no problem. And then Nehemia and Selena talk while Selena is recovering, okay? And Nehemia reveals that she truly came to Adeline as a spy. That kind of opens up a whole nother story, which is what the second book is kind of about. Then we learn that the king has secrets, okay? He knows of the word marks. He knows that Parrington is framing Caltaine. He knows about the poison. And he knows that Parrington has power in some form or fashion. And he knows about Kane's physical transformations. He also knows about the black rings, because he himself has one. And it helps with physical, emotional, and mental manipulation. We see that it does all of that. You know what I mean? And so, it's kind of scary. What's going on with the king and Duke Parrington? Selena breaks it off with Dorian. She can't be the king's champion and be in a relationship with the prince. It just can't happen. She knows that. She's like, all right, yeah, I gotta be a big girl. Dorian's like, he takes it very well. He's like, okay, I understand, but he still has a great affection for her. Selena signs her contract with the king, but the king then threatens her, like whispers it to her, and is like, if you don't follow through, I'm gonna kill Kale. I'm gonna kill Nehemia. I'm gonna kill her entire family. So what do we do first, girl? That's the story. That's the entire story. We get some crazy stuff happen, So now we move on to themes. There are a few themes that I saw in this book. One of them being colonialism, especially with the King of Aderlin. He destroys people who use magic and threatens his armies, threatens to use his armies against, other kingdoms that aren't his. He's just, especially with Theorizing, we learn that he just decimated so many things. We also get the sense of breaking generational trauma, with Selena telling Dorian that you're in a position where it's possible for you to change Aerelia for the better. And she's like, hey, you can break out of this cycle. You can literally be the better king whenever it's your time to be king. And then we also get a fun one that I think will be explored more throughout the story, is magic calls to magic, because that's what Nehemia kind of says towards the end of the book, is in reference to Selena. Kind of fun, and it's almost like, is there something there? What's going on? What's the secret that you're hiding? Okay, so we will move on to things that I liked. Okay, so there's a part when they're in Brandon's forest, and it's specifically in my book, it's on page 29, and it is the phrase, the leaves dangled like jewels, tiny droplets of ruby, pearls, topaz, amethyst, emerald, and garnet, and a carpet of such riches coated the forest floor around them. I love that. I was like, oh, I'm visualizing this forest in fall. I'm just loving it. Very beautiful, very colorful. Something Selena says, I think she says to Kale in page 93, she says, I might not have as much time to read as you and Dorian do, but that doesn't mean I love books any less. We get it, girl. You're busy, but you still love books. We see a phrase that is written where it kind of illuminates Selena's humanity, and it's on page 124 in my book, and it says, Selena said a silent prayer for the dead champion and wished him well. And that is when the champion tries to book it, and she kind of, almost like she kind of sees herself in that position, especially when she tried to make the escape from Endovier, from the salt mines. So I really like that kind of human response that she has. Something that I really enjoyed, and for no reason but that I related to it, was the fact that Selena had an interest in maps, and I kind of highlighted that. That was on page 226, and I just really enjoyed it because I thought it was like, yeah, I do too, because you're gonna tell me that you don't sit and look at this map and be like, okay, all right, cool, where do we go next? Whenever they're traveling or they're talking about another place, I'm like, okay, where's that at, and where's that in correlation to where they're at now? That kind of whole thing. I love it. Then I like this exchange between Selena and Dorian, where she says, what's the point in having a mind if you don't use it to make judgments? And Dorian says, what's the point in having a heart if you don't use it to spare others from harsh judgments of your mind? I kind of like that, and I thought that was really fun, a fun little thing. Okay, so on to mythos and lore and interesting foreshadowing. Kind of bubbled this all together. In the beginning of the book, Selena kind of when she's being escorted, she is overhearing one of the work songs that she recalls that people are singing in Elway, and the phrase that she hears is "and go home at last." I think this could be an evidence of foreshadowing, and I wrote that maybe not in this book, but maybe in a future book. In the same chapter, it is being spoken about Selena, where it goes, yes, she would go to Rifthold, to anywhere, even through the gates of Word and into hell itself. Now the term gates of Word gets questioned later, and it gets more fleshed out, so I actually looked it up. So Word has an equivalent in our world, real world folklore, specifically Old English, Old Germanic pagan culture, that kind of whole thing. And the word means fate or destiny. And the word evolves and becomes the word weird. It can be also traced back to the Nordic deity of I'm pronouncing that really, really horribly, but I'm gonna put up the word on the screen, or erd in Anglo-Saxon. It also is presented in the feminine. I think that's interesting. Brandon's Forests, which can be found on page 30, which I marked. I like that there's a place that still has a lot of magic that naturally lingers in the forest, that like magic really can't be sucked out of the world in a way, or just like shut down, I don't know, but it still lingers in there and it's still evident. And also we learn a little bit about the mythos of magical creatures. The forest had fairies, gnomes, sprites, nymphs, goblins, etc., all ruled by their larger human-like cousins, the immortal fae, the original inhabitants and settlers of the continent, and the oldest beings in Erilea. And I think that absolutely gets more fleshed out in the later books as well. We get a little bit more history of the world. On page 35, we get that someone betrayed Selena, but she doesn't know who. I think it's self-explanatory. I think we'll figure it out who betrayed Selena and turned her into the salt mines, or caused her to go to salt mines. I think we'll figure that out very soon. Then we also get more history of Theorizing. The royal family of Theorizing was slaughtered, and the king of Adarlan invaded. And throughout the story, we get Selena's guilt and sorrow toward her homeland, especially being invaded by the king. I think this is an important cornerstone of the story. Theorizing is a place with rich history of magical creatures that makes it an enemy of Adarlan. We also get that Selena knows the king's sword. What's the name of the king's sword? And it's Nothung. I want to make a note of this because either it's super popular, the sword is, or Selena has a history with the sword. So we get that Selena finds a word mark, a triangle and a circle, an ancient religion that died long ago. Okay, so I couldn't find any runes that were like close to a triangle and a circle, so I presume that it's inspired by Celtic runes. But I like the idea of an ancient religion that died long ago. It's very reminiscent of Sumerians, Babylonians, ancient Celtic or ancient Gaelic. And I think that's really interesting. It also gives a very mysterious vibe to the story. Okay, so then when Selena goes down to the tomb in the stone coffin where the king and queen are laid to rest, it says times rift. That's what the tomb says. And I think the phrase times rift is going to explain more in the future, because it really wasn't explained in this book, but I think it's really important. I don't know what to think about it, and I'm like, is there something like universal happening, like multiverse type thing? We also get a fun little offbeat description that the queen's face in the stone reminds Selena of a rose smell. I'm intrigued. What does that mean? But also I want to, like, I don't know. It was very like weird to me to be able to read, but I was like, I'm super intrigued what she means by that. Like, what does she mean by a rose smell? I mean, it could be like because it's so beautiful or because it's so delicate, but I'm intrigued. But I kind of, because of this, like, I was thinking about it for so long, and I was like, I kind of have a theory about it, but I don't want to spoil anything. And I want to finish the series, and I want to get to a certain point before I start, like, I don't know. Let me finish the series and let me get to a certain point before I start being like, oh my gosh, this is this and this is this, kind of thing. So I also want to know, because of the whole tomb thing, we get that there are word marks on Elena's tomb. And I just want to note that we find word marks. So I think we'll know more about word marks soon. I really, 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 really hope we do. What does it mean? What are word marks? Where did it come from? I need to know. Okay, and then there's a line on page 207. Some books claim that word is the force that holds together and governs Erilea, and not just Erilea, countless other worlds too. This is what I mean, where I was like, either Erilea is the continent or Erilea is the world. I think it's the world. But I like that there's already talk about like a multiverse type thing, and that word is kind of like the force. I love that. I'm all for it, actually. I love Star Wars, and if we can get some Star Wars inspiration in other books, absolutely. Yes. A word is not just fate or destiny, it's something entirely bigger than that. And I like that. I want more. What is it, In the same page, we get, I think it's Selena talking about the book that she's reading. Some theories suggest that the mother goddess is just a spirit from one of these other worlds, and she strayed through something called a word gate and found Erilea in need of form and life. So we have a small revelation of how word is so much more. It's so much more, and it's different from what our characters had originally thought. And there's a hint of other worlds, which I love, but I think it's interesting that we are learning things alongside our characters. I think that's super important. That should be done in so many other books, especially in fantasy. Please keep doing that. We also are noted that word gates appear alongside word marks. This is super important, especially when we see word marks. That's why, we're like, oh my god, what is going on with these word marks? Are there other gates being opened? So later on, we get the reference of Selena's description being something referenced to as a queen of the underworld, which is really interesting. But not only is that the only time that is being referenced, Knox also referenced her as Queen of the Underworld as well, like 70 pages later, something like that. We do get word of a little more of our history between Gavin and Elena. Gavin and Elena had a war with a person called Erewhon. So we have an old vision. We have an old villain named Erewhon, which immediately made me think of Erewhon, the cafe, the thing. I've never been to it. I just hear about it from a lot of LA influencers. They're like, gotta try this new shake from Erewhon, and it's like the milkshake or the smoothie's like $15, and you're like, oh my god, I could buy a whole movie or book with that. And then we won't get more of our lore in this world about Yulmus. It says, celebrate the darkness that gave birth to the spring light, nor did it feel like a holiday to celebrate the birth of the goddess's firstborn son. I love that. We get a little history. We get a little mythology in this world. It's so I love that. Then a few pages later, we get the great goddess gave birth to her firstborn, Lumus, lord of the gods. With his birth, love was brought into Erilea, and it banished the chaos that arose from the gates of word. So we get Lumus is the god of love. Deanna is the goddess of the hunt and maidens, which Selena gets her arrow from, or arrow honored to her for that stuff. Then with the final fight with Kale. With the final fight with Cain, whenever she's in that shadow world, we get this description. All around her, whispering, laughing, otherworldly voices. They called to her, but called a different name, a dangerous name. We don't know what this name is, and that sucks. Could be Alentia, which is what Nehemia, that's the name that she gives her, but probably not, because it would have been told to us, if it was. So we don't know what this name is, and we won't know in this book, unfortunately. But it's a mystery that will keep us enticed to read more. A few pages after that, this whole battle between Cain and Selena, really happens over the course of, a couple pages, maybe a chapter or two. He says to Selena, you were brought here. All of you were. All the players in an unfinished game. My friends, and he gestures to the dead, have told me so. I'm sorry, what? An unfinished game? Time out. I need the lore here. I need the lore. After her battle, we get that a mark burned on her forehead in blinding blue light. Nehemia and Selena don't know what this is, but Nehemia remarks that it is a part of her. So we'll hopefully figure out what the mark means soon, hopefully. And then we get what I said earlier with the themes. We get Nehemia saying to Selena, magic goes to magic. Nehemia gives us a sense that Selena is probably capable of magic. Maybe? Was she a former magic user? Because if that were so, whenever magic was outlawed, she would have been 8. So maybe she was a young magic user. Selena then goes back down to the tomb and has a conversation with Elena, and she finds out there are many realms. So many realms. And she's like, is it possible to go to any of these realms? And girl, I need to know more. What? I think this is gonna be important to the rest of the books. And then one of the last things I have written down is Elena says to Selena, you could rattle the stars. I love that line. I think that's beautiful. And it's such a great thing to say to your protagonist, especially when they're about to embark on such a larger journey. So with that all in mind, here's the reason why I wanted to do this series. Because of this whole, are there other realms? There is a theory, a very real theory, that the Throne of Glass series, the Akatar series, and the Crescent City series, that these are all different realms, and they are in some ways could be connected, or they're mirrored or something. And with the possibility of different realms, I think there's something there, and I want to talk about that more, especially with the rest of the series. And I think there's theories with maybe how it could connect with Akatar or Crescent City. Then there's more on that. Don't worry, we'll get to more. That should be so exciting, and I'm really excited to dive into that, and how maybe there's a multiversal aspect with different species, because each one of these books solely focuses on Fae, and I don't know what it can mean. Who knows? But I'm really excited to go through the rest of the series, rest of the books, and dive into them more. I really had a fun time reading this book. That's it for now. If you like this video, please like it, subscribe to get more videos from me, and to anticipate when the next video is coming out. I think that is going to be I do have my Patreon linked below if you want to be a patron. If you want to just help out and support. That's fun. Follow me on my socials on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. That is it for now. I hope you guys have a great day, and thank you so much for watching this video. That is awesome. Thank you guys so much, and I hope to see you guys soon with another video. And yeah, we're gonna just end it here, I think. Can't think of anything else to say. I never do. I always go blank at this part.